And I think it was a very good decision for us to do so because, well, if we hadn't done so, we wouldn't be getting the chance to talk with you, which is pretty cool.
Yes.
So we're very happy with the results up to now. And it's interesting because it's two things. One, it permits us to connect with the community. Two, it permits us to give let the community know a little bit more about our festival, which is something that Tetsu and I put our hearts into every year. It's
Yes.
1 week, but it takes a year long of planning.
Yeah, I can
And
imagine.
But it's really fun. So the whole thing is for us to keep the ball rolling and get people engaged and things of the sort. And we've gotten the chance to talk to some really cool people, which you know. One of them is Chris, uh, Jonathan Huggins, that we spoke with a
Yes.
couple of weeks ago. We talking with Didzi, with the group behind the Women in Language. Um, we have always someone different, and it's what keeps this very dynamic. So
Yes.
um,
That's awesome.
today, today, Camila, we're very happy to have you with us. We know that you're so passionate about languages that you've made it. You know, you're one true true. I guess this is all Camila is languages now. I was reading your diary, your journal, and I saw that you didn't necessarily start into that. But languages have become really the central focus of your life now, and you share your passion for languages online. Um,
Yes.
some of the idea that I got to start doing vlogs and stuff like that is I got from you actually through
Thank you.
the presentation that you did. I think originally for Paulino's language learning summit or something like
Yes.
that, which was very interesting. So maybe you'd like to tell us a little bit more about you, about how you came into languages. Give our speakers, I guess all the people that are watching, the opportunity to find out a little bit more about you.
Yeah, absolutely. Start from the beginning. Like I'd love
From
to
the
know it.
beginning.
Yeah.
In my case, there are many beginnings. So I have to think where to start. Well, originally I studied healthcare technology.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, so it's not even related to learning languages at all. And the original idea was finishing my bachelor's and then studying a master's degree in biomedical engineering. But the only problem was that I was born in the Netherlands. I grew up bilingual with Turkish and Dutch because I'm Turkish, but I grew up in the Netherlands. Um, when I go on a holiday, I usually go to Turkey. I mean, in general, in the Netherlands, people speak English very well. But in my case, it was not so good, and I had to improve a lot. The master's degree would be in English, and I had to take an exam. So first of all, I just wanted to improve my English and I was looking for several ways to improve it. So I did a lot of things that didn't work, like working out of grammar books and listening to videos, but my motivation didn't last longer than 10 minutes. I was overwhelmed by the number of words that I didn't know. So I started looking for other ways to practice. I started writing a diary, for example. I started blogging in English. My blog, Polyglot's Diary, was created only just for improving my English. Back then, I was more passionate about learning Spanish than English, so I thought maybe it's a good idea to share my progress in learning Spanish, but then in English. So at some point, I was so enthusiastic about how much progress I made in less than half a year than in 6 7 years that I put a lot of effort and work into improving my English. That I thought maybe I can just incorporate this also for Spanish, also for French, German, and other languages that I was that I wanted to learn.
Yep. So yes, definitely. I mean, as we can tell, you speak English very, very well now, Camila. And when I was reading your your website, your diary, I saw that this is actually started as a school project and stuff like that, and you know realized that you there was a need for you to find a better way to learn English. You
Yes.
had, from what I could read, there was something about being having to work with people from communities that were from China.
Hmm.
And we have the same things here in North America. A lot of people just come first and second generation. They speak very, very little. There's a lot of
Hmm.
people in their community, but they don't really have the need to learn. And it's very
Yes.
difficult for them. And usually the younger generations do speak. However, a lot of the older generations have a hard time learning. Obviously, nowadays with all the different technologies and tools that are out there,
Yes.
that it might be easier. But still, there's always that challenge. How do I start? How do I do it?
Hmm.
And I gotta get creative. Like for
Yes.
example, for
Yes,
German,
it's also a
I have to
matter
get
of,
creative.
yeah. Sorry, I was interrupting you.
No, that's okay. It's good. Go ahead.
But it's also a matter of getting out of your comfort zone because usually we're taught in schools to work out of books and just follow a traditional way, a traditional pathway. Even if your teacher would say, go film yourself, nobody would do it. But if you just push yourself in, if you make a habit, getting out of yourself, a kind of a project, a self-improvement project, it gets easier if you do strange things to improve yourself every day. So, for example, the one time it can be filming yourself, another time it can be interviewing a native speaker, or maybe collaborating with someone to do a podcast.
Hmm.
I think
Or doing code videos on
often.
chocolate in Spanish and stuff like
Mhm.
that. You've done some cool things. You're very
Yeah,
creative, and I applaud that because you don't let the fact that you don't speak the language perfectly get in the way. You try to
yes,
create
that's also
content.
very important.
You have fun with it.
Yes.
Language learning should be fun.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think it's
uh,
also because Camila, you it seems like you really want to learn language, whether it's English or any other language. Whereas many people in classrooms, the motivation is sort of different. Sometimes it's for a job or because they feel pressured to do
Mm-hmm.
it or whatnot. So they don't sort of go out of the box to try to seek different ways that work well. They just sort of do it and
Yes.
follow the textbook and whatnot. So maybe that's when the results are not as convincing.
Yes. Because one of the things I always do or always try to do is I imagine for myself, for example, when I start learning a language, I imagine for myself what the benefits could be if I would master this language, the amazing things that I could do, for example, connecting with new people, meeting new people, going to the country. Uh, yeah, I list all of these things for myself. I create a kind of a vision journal for myself, so that also helps me stay motivated. When
yes,
there is a day that I think I don't want to practice, I look back at why I started in the first place, and that helps me to continue.
that's it. So yes, definitely, you have to be very creative. You have to have different methods of learning. I think
Hmm.
sometimes I get bored if I just do one thing, so I use different applications. I do different types of things. I try to get content in many different ways, and that's
Yes.
one 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 way that that I go about learning. One of the things that I can see, and you experience the same problem. A lot of people have to work very hard to learn new languages. I often, because like yourself and like Tetsu, when I was young, I learned more than one. I learned them by default. I never really had to study, or I just learned them because it was the languages that were around me. And then when I tried to learn like German, that I've been trying to learn for over 20 years, uh, I realized it takes a lot of work. So I mean, you really need to have a good circle of people around you. You need to have people that you can practice with,
Yes, that's true.
and having all those different mediums or
Hmm.
streams of people that are helping you sort of playing cheerleader and giving you an opportunity to practice, I think is really essential. So
Yes.
the I think that's probably one of the reasons why your Instagram and your Twitter and all of your things have really like exploded, and then people are like following, and they're really inspired by what you do because you've given them sort of a means to be able to break out of their shell, get out of their comfort zone, like you
Hmm.
said, and it is something that is very important if you want to be able to get to that level where you start talking to people. And it's magical when you can. You get out of the
Yes.
books and you start talking. That's wonderful.
But actually,
So,
even at day one, you're able to say something. You can, for example, say today is Tuesday, or you can say my name is Kamila. That's already something. But most people underestimate their levels. They underestimate what they can. And that's also something that I want to show people that they're capable of doing more than they think they can.
yeah, I guess so. And for example, uh, what are the languages that you're trying to learn now? I saw that you're trying to learn Portuguese, Spanish.
Yes,
You already speak Spanish fairly well, but it's always
yes.
language
But
you're
I
always
want
going
to
to
sound
try to
like
learn.
a native speaker, so I try to improve my pronunciation and learn more typical expressions to sound more like a native speaker. Um, and also French and Japanese.
Yeah, that's
Japanese.
what I was
Wow.
going to say. Japanese. That was interesting. I saw you do some videos in Japanese.
Yes,
Japanese seems to be quite popular these days. I don't know if it's just me noticing, but a lot of people in our community, in our polyglot community, seems to be trying to pick up Japanese. Uh, I don't know.
That's
Is there
your
a
fault,
trend?
Tetsu, because you're so cool.
yes. I actually got inspired by them because there are so many people who share how they speak. I also like the pronunciation for
Really?
some reason.
Oh,
Wow.
I love it.
As
I got
opposed to
because
Mandarin or any other Asian language, specifically Japanese.
Yes, I think I will do Japanese also somewhere in the future because I really like the Asian culture
Nice.
because it's so different. I've read a
It
lot about it, especially in Europe. In the Netherlands, we talk directly to each other, we specify everything, but it seems to be different in Asia.
very different. Very.
Yes, so I think
I just came
this,
back actually from Japan 4 days ago, and I was giving a training on multicultural or intercultural communication to my team in Japan.
oh,
so, so yeah, I mean, there's this thing called the Hofstede model that talks about different dimensions, like power distance
the cultural
dimensions.
dimensions, yes.
Yeah, and you would say like Japan would have a relatively high power distance, so people know their rank, so they won't speak back to people who are higher than their rank, for example. Whereas in Europe, it's a much more flat hierarchy. Well, it's a flatter society.
yes, that's true.
So people call each other by first names, and they can fight in a meeting, but go out for a beer after, you know.
Yes.
So it's fun, yeah. Knowing different cultures, definitely a eye opener, and definitely something that's useful in work
Yes.
and
But
everywhere else.
the way that I do it is usually if I have an appreciation for the food, I will be interested in wanting to learn the language. And I love sushi and Japanese food and stuff like that.
Oh, there you go.
My first true immersion in a natural, I mean actual Japanese family, and 48 years old. But the first time that I got to do that was when I spent a couple of days with Tetsu last year when we were planning working on last year's Langfest, and I stayed with him and his mom and stuff like that, and we were having traditional Japanese foods and or yeah, mostly Japanese. We didn't really have any Taiwanese. I guess we did have some Taiwanese food also. But either way, it was
It's
so
a
cool.
it's a
And I
mix.
came back motivated, and I said, I gotta learn Japanese. I just have to learn it.
Well,
So
that's good.
yeah,
Listen, we have folks look watching live right now, so you definitely want to say hello to all our fans.
Hello.
And I have Michael Miller uh, saying hi to everybody, and he has a comment. He says he'd love to hear more about Language Vision Journal with specific examples regarding the types of entries, how it's arranged, etc. Can you comment on that?
Do you mean the vision journal I was talking about?
Yep, the language.
Well, the thing I usually do is I ask myself, what language do I want to learn? What level do I want to get? I mean, for example, there are some languages that I only want to be able to speak, and it doesn't matter if I make mistakes. One of these languages is French. I can express myself perfectly. I make a lot of mistakes, but I don't know a lot of words, and that's totally fine. So, that's my goal. And then I imagine how awesome it would be if I would be able to, take the next step. So I think, for example, I can go to the country, I can order my food, I can't get lost, I will have a lot of fun, I will make a lot of friends. So I write this with a lot of details on a piece of paper. But you
Wow.
can get creative with
So
it. I mean,
you really write it out and
mhm.
wow, that's nice. I mean, professional athletes have image training, where they picture themselves doing the perfect shot and
Yes.
whatnot. So it's
But
kind of
I also
along the
saw
lines.
some people, but they are not using it for language learning. They're just using it for their personal goals. They use, for example, pictures of people they want to become like. So, for example, if you think, I want to become like Benny Lewis, I want to learn a language within 3 months, you can just put a picture of him to motivate yourself to look
Nice.
back at it.
Well, Michael just commented on, key inspirational quotes and a log of what you've
Yes,
done, that
yes.
kind of stuff. So I guess right down
That
your
will
alley.
probably help too. You can just take an empty piece of paper and put everything down that will inspire you.
I also love inspirational quotes. I mean, I think, you
Yes,
know,
me too.
it really gets you going,
Yeah,
fires up the motivation.
I think inspirational quotes are gets you in the zone every day. A lot of people like they have the certain rituals that they go through in order to be able to cite themselves to do whatever it is they have to do.
Hmm.
So definitely, it's a very good thing. But one of the things I think, and I think this is key, is just having in your circle people that are doing it. Like
Yes,
a
that's
lot of
really
people from the
important.
language community, it just makes such a big difference. Just watching your videos, your little blogs that you do every couple of days, it gives me a kick in the butt to say I should be doing something in German. Why didn't I post anything today? Go read something, do a class of Duolingo, whatever. Just do it.
Yes,
So
that's
yeah,
very true.
it
They usually say you're the average of
so
the 5 people you spend the most time with, and I
Yeah.
agree on that. And I
Wow.
also apply this rule to Instagram and online things. So I only follow pages and people who inspire me, and that really, really helps.
Wow.
yeah, exactly. Because
That's a
there's a
good.
lot of noise, so you have to focus on absolutely.
I love that. Wow. You are the average of the five closest people. I mean, I've heard that before, but really to hear that from somebody else, like really apply it even to like their social network. That's wow. I will sleep tonight more intelligent than yesterday. definitely. Wow.
That's
Thank you for that.
it is really a
You're
very
welcome.
smart observation. So, what's next for Camila? What are your targets? Do you have any conferences where you're going to be presenting?
I wish I could do that,
Anything
but
of the sort?
before, um, I left my job a couple of months ago. So, right at this moment, I decided to not focus on healthcare or technology or anything related to my field anymore. So,
Wow.
I want to start my own business. But the thing is, I don't like teaching. I'm not passionate about teaching. I don't like to study grammar rules, so let alone teaching other people how to apply grammar rules. So I thought maybe it's a good idea to focus on the aspects that are important um, when it comes to language learning. Things such as speaking to people, finding the right people to practice with, motivation, goal setting, and all these aspects. So right at this moment, I don't have a job, and the money I have to invest in my own project. So unfortunately, I can't go to any conference this year, but I would absolutely love to go to Langfest.
Where are you
Maybe
based, by the way?
I'm
You are
uh
in
in
Netherlands?
the Netherlands.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, okay. All right.
Netherlands. So,
Well, hopefully
yes,
we'll
we
see
would love to have you.
Hmm?
so hopefully we'll have a chance to
We
see
would
you
love to have
in
you.
person.
Yes, I would love to go to it and meet you in person.
You know, you were talking about
Yeah.
your job, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, we have a lot of things in common.
Really?
I currently work in the healthcare uh, industry.
What is your job exactly?
Yeah, well, I run clinical studies, so
Oh,
project
yes.
management in clinical studies. Except I started my career in Japan, and
Mm-hmm.
basically I work remotely, so I just need my computer and my phone, and I can work. And I brought my work, from Japan. I moved to Taiwan for a year and a half. Then I
Mm-hmm.
moved the whole family back to Canada, where I am now. But I'm still doing pretty much the same work, except time zone differences. So my
Yes.
day starts after dinner. But other than that, you know it's the same thing. But I've not quit my job, but I've quit half my job. I now work
Oh, your job.
I now work part time, so I'm a zero point 0.5
Oh,
FTE,
yes.
and like you, I'm trying to find something else I could do with that's closer to languages, and for
And
me,
what is your relationship with languages? How
well, I
did you?
I grew up speaking a few languages because I grew
Oh,
up in
really?
Taiwan,
Oh, yes.
where there's Mandarin, and then my mother's Japanese, so I spoke Japanese. I went to an American school, so I spoke, English at school. Then I moved to Canada, and I went to a French high school, and so the first language that I really studied myself and picked up was Spanish. That was my fifth language, um, and then I did a few other, at university and whatnot. But now I'm more focused on raising multilingual children. So
Oh, that's awesome.
my social media is all about how I raise my kids. I have three kids, and how I get them to use the five languages that I speak fluently.
Five languages.
Yeah,
Whoa,
that's right.
that's
So
awesome.
Yeah.
And do they speak all of these
Okay.
languages fluently?
fluently, I mean, fluent is a big word, but
Mhm.
fluent standardized to a 5-year-old, 4-year-old, definitely. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So Tetsu, please Tetsu, explain to Camila, which is probably doesn't hasn't heard it before, how you go about your children learning five languages simultaneously. Quite quite an
the
experiment, I think.
very core of how we do it is it's called Opal, one person, one language.
Yes,
Okay,
that really helps.
so that it's how do I get the kids to talk to a specific person in a specific language. So they get them to assign a language to a person, and that's it. Other than that, it's live their life as kids. So I always speak to my kids in Mandarin. My wife who's Japanese always speaks to them in Japanese. Living in Quebec, they go to a daycare or the kindergarten in French. And I've brought in an au pair from Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
so that's the Spanish. And sometimes we have a second au pair who will do English. Although my kids went to an American daycare when we were in Taiwan. So there you go, the five languages. We're not looking at any more nor less. I'd like to try to maintain this until they're at least 10 or 12.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I think that'll be good enough. Uh, like I spoke Mandarin until I was 13 living in Taiwan, and then I
Mm-hmm.
stopped for about 20 years. And then I went back to Japan and I had colleagues from China and I started speaking again and it's still all there. So I think that
Yes.
window of time when you're very young is the time to really get them to acquire the languages. So that's why I'm investing heavily right now in their future.
Yeah, you could say it's your life project.
It is. It is.
That's awesome because here in the Netherlands, I grew up bilingual, but I grew up speaking both of the languages with everyone I knew. So
Hmm.
it's
Okay.
really mixed. And sometimes when I'm speaking Turkish, I don't know a lot of words because I'm used to thinking of difficult words in Dutch. So I start a sentence sometimes in Turkish and then I end it with some Dutch words. So my accent is not so good and my vocabulary is not so good. And after all, it doesn't really work that way. So I'm really, really proud of what you're doing.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very interesting to be in touch with the children
Hmm.
because you never know which language are they going to identify you with and talk to you with. Like for example, my wife is from Ecuador. Whenever they see her, it's Spanish. They can't speak to her in any other language. They know
Yes.
she is Spanish. And in my case, they talk to me in English, I guess.
Yeah. They
But
associate the person with the
it's
language,
really for them.
Yes.
Yeah,
and that is the
and
key
and I
element.
think we kind of do that too. We kind of do that too on our own. Like for example, the normal language that Tetsu and I speak is English.
Hmm.
However, sometimes if there's people in the Langfest community or in our volunteers and stuff like that that speak more French, we'll use French as a language. And we know, like, for this person, oh, this guy's French, this guy's English, this guy's
Hmm.
this guy's that. And it's
But I
automatic
think.
in our heads, who we have to speak with.
Hmm. But I think in general, especially if you're a polyglot, it's better to have one friend for one language because sometimes I have so many multilingual friends and I can speak everything with them. But I noticed by myself, for example, if I speak Spanish and French and English at the same day with one person, I get confused. At the end of the day, I mix up all of these languages, even if when I'm talking with someone else.
Yeah, yeah. I've because I have people from many different cultures. Also, and my wife is more Spanish, and I'm of Italian origin and stuff like that. Sometimes I found if we hold a party, mostly when we first got married, we used to throw parties and
Hmm.
have everybody come together, and we saw, it was all pockets. We didn't communicate with each other very well. And one of the things that I noticed is, if after a certain while, we started saying, okay, so we got to invite the Spanish speaking Latinos on one day and the other day because, there was better synergies between everyone,
Hmm.
just natural flow of people, unless they're all polyglots. Then everybody just gets along and talks and stuff like that.
Yes.
However, it's like I have different worlds. I have my Spanish world, I have my Italian world, I have my French world, I have my English world. So, and they're all compartmentalized in a sense.
And
And
you have a set of personalities for each, right? You have the
yeah,
Spanish Joey, and
exactly,
you have the
exactly.
French Joey, and
Yeah, it's freaky when you think about it, and I'm sure it's the same thing for you guys.
it is.
But
Yes.
yes, that's the life of being a polyglot.
All right. Well, listen, we have to wrap up pretty soon. It was most interesting. You just don't see the time fly by. But thank you
Oh,
very much.
yes.
It was a lot of fun.
Thank you too for having me.
Yes. Yes, we enjoyed very much having you with us. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation, Kamila. Look forward to seeing your more of your blogs and stuff like that. Wait, you didn't tell us about your book or something like that that you're producing right now. I saw something
Oh,
about
yes.
something that you're
I'm
working
working on a
before we
language
finish.
planner right at this moment. It's about goal setting and finding the factors that are blocking you sometimes from making progress, about finding the factors that are making you feel insecure, and defining some goals uh, to deal with them. So if you're interested, you can take a look at my coming soon page. I don't know if you can link it somewhere.
Of course, we're going to put the
Facebook.
links to all of that in our.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. So we link it to your Polyglot's Diary blog.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Okay. So
thank you very much.
Obviously, good afternoon, good evening.
But before that, Joey,
yes.
From Langfast, just like to send out a little message to say that we are trying to find a few participants to do some wacky videos this weekend. So if you're in Montreal, you'd like to be part of some videos with the Langfest crew, definitely check out our Facebook page. We have some information there for shooting this Saturday 7th or the 8th of April, Sunday. So do check that out.
Can you give them the times and the location?
Well, the location will be in that post, so I'll link it in the comments here.
Okay, very good, very good. Perfect. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Great talking with you. See you everybody next week. Bye-bye.
See you next week. Bye-bye.